First of all, you're probably going to need a scorecard to keep up with the numerous twists and turns in today's featured story about the president's morning trant on Trump's social. I'm just trying to keep this palpable. The National Guard, as you know, is in Los Angeles, and their fate in the last 24 hours has been a furious back and forth power struggle between the governor, the reigning POTUS, and the courts. Now, sharpen your pencils, and let's catch up before we get into today's featured presidential bleat.
Breaking news literally just in. We just got the ruling in from the judge in San Francisco, Charles Breyer, who ruled that President Trump's call up of the National Guard, federalizing the National Guard, was unconstitutional. Breyer siding with Governor Newsom and Attorney General Rob Bonta and giving a big win to the state of California. This just came down a few seconds ago. We expect to hear live from Governor Newsom within the hour as he is just reading it. I'm just seeing it here for the first time. And we are processing this. My colleague Phil Schuman is going to be getting to it. I'm just reading this here. Let me read it to you. At this early stage of the proceedings, the court must determine whether the president followed the congressionally mandated procedure for his actions. He did not. His actions were illegal, both exceeding the scope of his statutory authority and violating the 10th Amendment to the United States Constitution. He must therefore return control of the California National Guard to the governor of the state of California forthwith. Big news right there from San Francisco.
Hey, you're right, Jagger. That was earlier last night. The narrative has since changed since then, leading up to our featured POTUS post from this morning. Throwing fuel on the embers? Well, that's one way to assess this situation. But let's quickly throw to Representative Dan Goldman for his terrific summation of where we are right now.
Hey everybody, Dan Goldman here. I want to talk a little bit about Trump invoking and calling up the National Guard and sending the military into Los Angeles. The protests that have risen up around the country because of this horrific and un-American policy has initiated Donald Trump's excessive, violent, and politicized reaction. He has sent 4,000 National Guard members into Los Angeles over the objection of the governor of California. That hasn't happened since 1965. And in 1965, it happened because the governor refused to follow federal law. That, in and of itself, is illegal, but it gets worse. He's also sent 700 Marines into Los Angeles to resist and oppose these protesters. The law is very clear. The military shall not be used domestically in the United States against Americans. And Donald Trump is just blatantly violating the law. Not only that, as we know, he considers these brave military soldiers to be suckers and losers, as he called them. And there are now pictures floating around the internet of military officers lying on the floor in basements, sleeping with no bedding, no pillow, no covers. Terrible treatment for our military servicemen. But the bottom line here is Trump has manufactured a crisis just so he can weaponize the National Guard, the military, to create and escalate a situation that should be de-escalated. And yes, anyone who is engaging in violence or looting should be arrested, should be prosecuted. But very few people are, and the vast majority are doing the American thing of peacefully protesting to express their objection to this administration's policy. It is time for Donald Trump to drop the authoritarian playbook, take the National Guard and the military out of Los Angeles, allow Mayor Bass, Governor Newsom to do what they were doing and are very capable of doing, which is keeping calm and safety and security in Los Angeles. Donald Trump is trying to distract from his terrible executive orders, from his devastating tariffs, and from his unconscionable reconciliation bill. and we will not let him do it.
Okay, so here's the latest as of this recording at least. The Ninth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals issued a decision that temporarily paused a lower court ruling that blocked the mobilization, although that does not mean that the court will ultimately agree with Donald Trump. Now, this political embarrassment continues not because Trump, got a temporary ruling in his favor, but because of the way he conducts himself. The petulant president that millions voted for. In the face of a crisis, a crisis of his own making, here's his cathartic? Cathartic? I don't know, I'm making up a new word. That's his response from 6:12 a.m. Let's take a look at it. The appeals court ruled last night that I can use the National Guard to keep our cities, in this case Los Angeles, safe. If I didn't send the military into Los Angeles, that city would be burning to the ground right now. We saved L.A. Thank you for the decision. Well, that's exactly right, Jagger. As you point out, this from a guy that ordered all that waste of all that water after the devastating fires, back in February. Another great executive decision. Clearly, in all this confusion, we need a moment of clarity. How about this? Maybe this deployment of Marines and National Guard can stop these thin blue line hooligans from defacing public property paid for by the taxpayer. Welcome to the theater of the absurd. Thank you, David Lynch.